See Beneath Your Beautiful podcast is raw and intimate, sometimes funny, and always entertaining. With new episodes every Saturday, Hara explores our loves, fears, and hopes with a delicious combination of depth and lightness.
My name is Colton Gerard. I am 35 years old, but I will be 36 here in a couple weeks. I've been in Spokane my entire life, but I did not transition until I was 30. I spent the majority of my life looking a little different. I was assigned female at birth, but I was only 3 years old when I started telling my mom that I wanted to be a boy, or that I was a little boy. I got very, very angry when I was told otherwise.
Yeah, I imagine. Well, the truth is I can't imagine. So that's why I'm so glad you're here talking to me.
Oh, well, yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. What did your mom say to you when you told her that?
Well, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, trans people existed, but trans people didn't exist in a visible way.
Mm-hmm.
It was still very taboo. It was still very much a secret thing. There wasn't the verbiage that people are so familiar with today.
Right.
So even people that did feel like they were trans didn't necessarily have the right way to say it at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very scary thing to be trans. And so my mom, like most people at that time, that she just thought it was a phase. Oh, it's just a phase. You're just a tomboy. You're just a tomboy.
Did you say you were 30 when you transitioned?
I was 30 when I finally decided that it had to be done. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And before that, you have overcome alcoholism. Is that what you would say?
Transitioning led to sobriety for me. I started saying I was a boy when I was 3. But when I hit about 25, I stopped going by my birth name and I started going by a shortened version of it, which was more masculine.
Mm-hmm.
I was in college at the time. I changed my name. I chopped off all my hair and I started wearing boxer briefs and sports bras, entirely. I guess you could say that's kind of where my transition started. I just definitely wasn't ready to put a label on that yet. That was just me kind of getting more comfortable in my skin. I started drinking heavily at 16, and I drank pretty heavily until I was about 32.
And do you think that being now in the body that you feel comfortable in led to your sobriety?
Oh, very much so. You can't get sober until you have a way to learn to love and forgive yourself.
Yeah.
And for me, I was never going to love myself in that body.
Mm-hmm.
As a woman, I was miserable. I mean, I despised what I saw when I looked in the mirror. And alcohol and drinking didn't help with that. When I finally decided to transition, I was almost 220 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
I was the heaviest I'd ever been, on top of already just hating what I was to start with. There was definitely no getting sober at that time.
So what was the turning point for you? How did you do it?
I told myself for a decade that I needed to get sober before it finally stuck. Sobriety in itself is as individual and unique as every person is. For me, I started taking testosterone a month before my 30th birthday, and drinking had come and gone. I was very much a functional drinker. I didn't have any massive, severe, life-altering consequences. I wasn't going to jail. Fortunately, it's sheer luck that I never got a DUI. That's not something I'm proud of, but it's the truth.
Same.
It wasn't like I needed to drink a bottle of whiskey every day. So I didn't have a lot of the physical withdrawal so much in the end. It was very much a mental thing. I just wasn't a very good person. I didn't like who I was. I didn't like the friend that I was. I wasn't a very good friend. And so when I started taking testosterone, it still took another 2 years of solid work. I got to a point one Christmas Eve, I drove intoxicated with my grandmother in the car, and I had some family members call me out on it. And I just decided that I was done. I was done feeling that guilt and that shame. Because for me, that's what really controlled my drinking. It was the guilt and shame cycle.
Yeah.
And I decided that I just didn't want to feel that way anymore. And so AA was never going to work for me. I tried a couple times over the years and it's just not for me. I appreciate it and I respect it for those it does work for, because it does work for some. But for me, it was never going to work. So I started looking into other things, and I found a book called The Small Book. It's called Rational Recovery. And it's basically the very opposite of AA in a lot of ways.
Oh, interesting.
I have all of the control. It's not I am powerless, because I never could get on board with that I am powerless concept. That was not for me. For me, it was no, I have all the power. I have all the choice. I am an adult who's capable of making decisions. And what it really was learning to take that little voice in your head. And then this could be used for really anything, whether you want to cut back on eating bad foods or drinking or smoking or really whatever bad habit you want to quit. You have that little voice in the back of your head that nags at you. It says, you want to do this, you want to do this, you want to do this, even though you don't really want to do this, but that voice tells you you want to do it. So what Rational Recovery was really all about was kind of corralling that voice and learning to control it and learning to say, no, you don't want that. Like, I learned to talk to that voice as a completely separate entity. I was able to say, no, screw you. You suck. You don't care about me. You're not a good thing. Like, I could put that part of me, I guess, down. I could belittle it. It allowed me to create a separation from myself and my addiction. And it gave me something to fight that wasn't just me. And that was really a life changer. The line that changed my life was, the last step of moderation is abstinence, because at some point in time, it just becomes easier to not do it. And it was like a light bulb moment. And for me, I was very fortunate. Like I said, I'd been telling myself and trying to quit for a decade.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, once this concept started resonating in my head, obviously the first couple months were difficult. But for me, real quickly, I started to see just how much easier my life was without alcohol.
Yeah.
That mixed with being 2 years into testosterone and looking in the mirror and starting to, really kind of see some of those changes that come with testosterone. Those two things combined just rocked my world. And within about 6 months, I remember one day I walked past the craft beer section at the grocery store. I loved my dark beer. I was a beer drinker. I loved dark beer, so I loved my craft beer. And I remember I walked past the aisle, and the very first thought that came to my head was, ew.
Awesome.
It was a very pivotal moment for me. It was like, I just think I did this. Wow. That was when I realized that I was going to succeed.
I've been sober almost 3 years, and I got sober because I was trying to get healthy. That was the motive. And I read this book called Kick the Drink Easily. And one of the things he said was, have you ever really liked the taste of it? You know how you have to convince yourself in the beginning?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when I thought about it, I've been convincing myself this whole time, I feel like, that I like the taste of alcohol, when really what I liked was the feeling of being high.
Oh, yeah.
That really helped, thinking about it like that.
Yeah, sometimes it takes the smallest change in perspective to really change your entire outlook on it.
Yeah. And he called it poison, which made real sense to me.
Oh, it really is.
And because I was taking my health into consideration so much, I haven't touched a drink either, because it just made so much sense to me that I don't want to poison myself when I'm taking all this other care.
Right? Good for you, by the way. Congratulations. That is fantastic.
Thanks. So it just does depend whatever works for somebody, because I just talked to some lady the other day that is almost 2 years sober, and AA is completely working for her. So I appreciate that we all hear what we need to hear the way we need to hear it. And thank goodness. Like something worked for you and something's working for her and something different worked for me. So I love that.
The best thing that anybody can do who is trying to get sober is to look into everything.
Yeah.
Because it's probably not just one thing that's going to work for somebody. Like, even I, who does not overall, I don't like AA for me, but there are still a lot of concepts and a lot of things within AA that I do respect and that I was using in the earlier times. Look into all the different options, look into AA, look into smart recovery, look into rational recovery, look into spiritualism, whatever it is, and then pick and choose from each one what works for you and create your own recovery program. Because again, the recovery process is as unique and individual as you are and as I am.
I think this conversation really lends itself so well to what the original topic is, which is everybody has their own path to recovery, to a happy life, whatever it is. How does your mom feel about it now? Like, does she still think you're going through a phase?
No, my mom has been very supportive. My mom very much wanted that little girl.
Aw.
I did have to work on myself and accepting the fact that she did have to give something up. And she still struggled with my pronouns for a long time. I mean, I'm talking even years into it, I'd still be like, Mom, damn it.
Yeah.
But overall, she's been amazing. She was there for my surgery. She's the one who took care of me. Yeah, so she's been very accepting. And actually, just this year, her and I have developed a closer relationship than we've ever had. So.
Oh, good. So I was doing some very minor research, like things not to ask. That's mostly what came up when I researched. And one thing was really funny, like these are the questions to ask instead of the stupid ones you would ask. Instead of asking about surgery, ask them if they'd like a nice cup of tea.
I like that.
That leads me to not knowing what to ask you, but also, what do you hate being asked? That's easier for me so that I don't offend you. What do you hate being asked and why?
The resounding number one answer from the majority of trans people is going to be, please don't ask me about my genitals in the very beginning of our conversation. And please don't make that your first question to me. It's none of your business. And I am so much more than what's in my pants. And
right.
That's got to be it when it comes to the number one.
100%.
Number two, don't ask us what our birth name was. That's a very personal thing. Many people refer to it as their dead name. It's something that if people want to share, I'm very open about the majority of my transition, and I do not tell people my dead name.
Oh, what does it mean if somebody asks?
I think it's different reasons for different people. A lot of people might relate trauma to their birth name, especially people that may not have had accepting families. They might really, really get incredibly uncomfortable to the point of like physical dysphoria when it comes to being referred to as their birth name. And so for anybody to call them that, or even for them to say it out loud, can be very traumatizing to some trans people.
Yeah.
For me personally, especially because of my drinking, I view that person as somebody that I am just not anymore.
Yeah.
Obviously, I have a lot of respect for that person. They got me through 30 years of probably a lot of really bad decisions. I mean, I was still a good person and I was still smart and I was intelligent. I have to give that girl that I was a lot of that credit. But I'm not really very proud of the person that I was then. And for me, I really look at my life as starting when I started my transition. For me, I just prefer to keep that to myself because I don't want to think about that person and I don't want anybody throwing that name around. And it does make me feel uncomfortable. It really does. Like, it does. The more I think about it, yes, it just makes me uncomfortable.
Thanks for explaining that. Do you have a lot of people in your life now that were in your life prior?
I have been very fortunate. There's only a handful of people that I lost. And it hurts losing anybody. But overall, I was incredibly fortunate. Very, very few people, maybe a solid handful that I lost along the way. There was a couple that really hurt. Some people that I was really, really close with. It was okay. I've been very loved. It made transitioning and also made getting sober a lot easier.
Oh, yeah. What is wrong with society that those people can't accept you?
With some people, I think it makes them uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
People don't like what they don't understand. I lost one person because he refused to let go of the person I used to be.
Ah.
He was like, so and so was my best friend and you'll always be so and so. And I was like, well, I'm sorry, so and so died.
Yeah.
This is who I am now. And he just couldn't handle that. So
Yeah.
again, it sucks. It's unfortunately part of the process. And I have, over the last handful of years, really come to understand that people come and go from our lives for a reason. They teach us things while they're here, good or bad. You could be incredibly close with somebody and then the next day they're just not there anymore.
That is so true.
It's an unfortunate part of life, but I appreciate the things that I've learned from all the people that have come and gone.
I wish I had known that earlier in my life. I'm glad you know that in your mid-30s.
I've gained tenfold what I've lost. I've gained 100-fold what I've lost.
Wonderful.
One of the things that I faulted in myself was I was always, why am I so bad at creating relationships? Why am I so bad at having positive relationships? And it was because I hated myself when I was drunk. It was amazing how much, I was able to develop positive relationships with positive communication skills when I was happy and sober.
I interviewed somebody who we were talking about race, and he was saying, people just need to accept everybody and love everybody. And the last thing I said was, it's hard to love everybody when you don't love yourself. And so that's where we all have to start.
It's very true. And we have to be able to be honest with ourselves. I mean, I tell myself all the time that I need to stop being an ass. We are lying to ourselves and to other people if we say that we never have judgmental thoughts or that we never have a racist thought or a bigoted thought. Like, it happens. The work comes in when we have those negative thoughts, because that's when we get to stop and put ourselves in check and realize, okay, this is what I did. This is where it comes from. And I got to do the work to change that.
Yeah, that's good.
If we were able to acknowledge some of our negative downfalls more freely and without fear of judgment, I think we might be better off as a human race, because, then it would allow us to do the work together.
What would you offer somebody who is younger and feeling like they're in the wrong gender? Is that what you say?
I think there's a lot of ways to say it. I don't think you're wrong in how you say it. They feel like they were born the wrong gender. They feel like they're in the wrong body. They feel like they are transgender. Kids these days are lucky in the sense that they have the terminology. We talked about that earlier in this conversation, how, that terminology and the ability to describe how you feel in scientific and actual recognized scientific biologic words is so helpful. But it's still a really, really, really scary thing to be. And you still have to jump through so many hoops. I mean, you have to have letters from multiple therapists.
Oh.
I think you have to have at least one letter still to start testosterone or to start hormones.
From who?
You have to have at least 2 letters to have from psychologists, psychiatrists. Yeah.
Oh, really? Is that offensive?
It's not offensive, but man, it makes it hard. I mean, not everybody has the luxury of being able to afford going to a counselor. So what happens when you've got a 12-year-old kid out there that can't get to or even a 20-year-old person who can't get to a counselor? And so their ability to transition and move forward is completely blocked because of financial reasons. Financial reasons are a huge hindrance for most trans people. But I digress. Back to your question about advice to younger people. I guess my advice is just to keep asking questions. Keep asking questions and keep an open mind about yourself. Gender, sexuality, who you are as a whole. I mean, it's constantly evolving. But if you feel like you're trans, chances are you're probably trans. Ask questions, find out as much as you can, find someone who you can trust to talk to. If you can't talk to your parents, find someone at your school that you can trust, or an aunt or an uncle, just somebody who might be able to help you kind of navigate what your options are, because they don't make it easy to be trans. You got to jump through a lot of hoops. Unfortunately, if your parents aren't on board, you're kind of screwed until you hit 18.
Right. I have a girlfriend has a trans son now. Has trans son had She was a daughter. She was born a girl.
Born female.
Born female. See, I'm trying
Perfect.
so hard.
Well, no, you're getting it right. You're doing good.
Try not to. And so this is why I want to have the conversation.
Let me tell you something. Let me cut you off for just a second. You're never going to offend in trying to ask how to do it right.
Okay.
If you were just popping off with these questions without, thinking about the effect that they would have, that's where the offense would. But the fact, these questions that you're asking is the exact opposite of offensive. You're trying to help yourself and other people understand. So I appreciate that. And most trans people would appreciate the way that you're going about this. So please take a step back and know that you're doing a good job.
Thanks. I really do appreciate that. Thank you. And I hear what you're saying. So she did want, is it called top surgery?
So he wants top surgery.
Yes, he wanted top surgery. And the mom did make him wait until he was 18, which I think is very valid. What do you think about the age?
I think that's not a bad decision. I would tend to agree with that.
Yeah. See, it's hard for me because the person I was at 18, you too, probably at 20, at 25, at 30, has changed at 40, at 50. I'm still not the person I think I'm supposed to be. So that's hard for a mom, I assume, to just okay it. And she was so mindfully, she was totally okay with what her son wanted. But, that part where you're having surgery and you can't go backwards. So that, I guess, is just something that would be hard for, I don't know, hard for anybody. I'm probably hard for the person going through it. Do you think that's true?
Very true. And I mean, you got to keep in mind, yes, we are always changing, but I started saying I want to be a boy when I was 3.
Right.
Some things are pretty concrete and some things we just know about ourselves.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
There's so much controversy when it comes to transgender kids. I don't think that, and this is just a personal opinion and every kid might be different. Some kids might be ready for it. I tend to be supportive of parents making them wait until 18 for surgery. Now, I do agree with parents listening to their children when it comes to puberty blockers. I think puberty blockers are an amazing scientific advancement. I think it allows kids to have the extra time to make sure that that's what they want.
Can you explain what that is? I don't even know what that is.
Oh, sure. There are medications that younger kids can take that will prevent puberty from setting in.
Oh, okay.
So like for your friend's son.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the age of like 11 or 12 when puberty is starting to kick in and they're starting to, get hair on their body, boobs are starting to grow, and they're starting to get incredibly uncomfortable with themselves. There is medication that they can take, stop the breast tissue from growing, to stop the hips from filling out. Or if you're assigned male at birth, there are things that can happen to stop the voice from dropping, to stop the muscles from starting to develop more severely, to stop facial hair from growing in. Basically, it just allows kids to remain in that prepubescent body stage a little bit longer. So they have a little bit more time to emotionally and mentally mature and understand what it is that they're making a decision on. They're not yet taking hormones to be the other sex. They're just taking something to prevent their natural hormones from kicking a little longer, so they have more time to decide if they want to take hormones.
I see. Do you know anybody in real life who's done that?
With their kids, yeah. I know one gal who has a transgender daughter. I think she is going into like 8th grade now, and I believe she started her transition in like 3rd grade or maybe even younger. I would be surprised as hell if she wasn't on blockers. For some trans kids, I mean, blockers are a godsend. Those things didn't exist when we were younger. It wasn't even an option. We just had to deal with what we had to deal with. Especially with a trans person who is so adamant and understands so much that it's what they want as a young person. Puberty can be, it's hard enough for any kid.
Right.
Now imagine you feel like a boy and all of a sudden you got boobs growing and there's just nothing you can do about it. It can be very traumatic.
I see that now.
You want to talk about what questions you can ask?
Yes. Thanks. What questions can I ask?
There's a couple different things. Some trans people are a little bit more open and enjoy talking about their transition and enjoy helping other people understand. And some people just really want to be left alone.
Yeah.
If you do develop a friendship with a trans person, try not to do it right away. Make sure you're actually developing somewhat of a friendship and just say, hey, would it be okay if I asked you a couple questions? Usually that's the one question that we really want to be asked. Is it okay if I ask you a couple questions?
Right.
And then, maybe ask, is there any guidelines on those questions? That's where you need to do your homework. For most people, you'd think it would be common sense to not ask about someone's genitals, but it still happens all the time.
I don't want you asking about mine.
Right? If you really want to know, ask us how our perspective on life changed after we transitioned. Ask us how we feel about growing a beard, or, ask a trans woman how she feels about finally being able to wear the clothes that she likes.
Yeah.
Here's something that a lot of people don't ever think about. Most trans people, or at least the folks that didn't transition young, we never got to be teenage boys or teenage girls, so to speak. So like trans women in particular, I think, as trans guys, we're like, oh God, we can just really get away with jeans and a t-shirt now. Fantastic. Life is so much easier. But for trans women, women in general tend to put more effort into their appearance, into their fashion, into their makeup. It's something that women enjoy as having part of their daily routine. Well, trans women spent a good portion of their life never being able to do that.
Yeah.
So if you see a trans woman that maybe has kind of a wonky outfit on or is doing something wonky with their makeup, you got to remember sometimes that these are people that are really just finally being, they get to be teenage girls for the first time. They get to go wear the crazy pink lipstick and that, pink halter top that their mother never would have let them wear. They get to be that teenage girl. And then, they get to, just like you did, they get to learn how to grow and evolve with the style until they get to a place where they want to be. Now that I have facial hair, I get to try doing it in different ways until I find the way that I like it. But it was really awkward. I didn't know how to shave.
Yeah.
We go through second puberty. I went through puberty at 30. It was awful. It was absolutely awful.
Your voice changed and all that.
Oh God, yeah. My voice changed. The sex drive was horrible. I fully understand and sympathize with young teenage boys now. I totally get it. It's awful. Like moms of teenage boys, it really is as bad as you think it is. Like, I'm sorry, but it is. Just keep them away from girls. Maybe give them a magazine and leave them alone.
That's so funny. What about asking about who you like to date? What gender you like to date?
Yeah, that's fine. So sexuality is completely separate. For me, my sexuality actually evolved with transitioning. I think I was as a biological woman, I knew I liked women, but I felt like a dude and I was very confused by my sexual attraction to men. So I really just backburnered that, thinking it was just like a weird thing. And I felt bad about it for a long time. And then I transitioned and I realized that there's a difference also even between sexual attraction and romanticism.
Oh.
Like you can be sexually attracted to somebody without having a romantic attraction to them. I prefer women on a romantic and sexual level. Like I'm attracted to women. That's who I would prefer to date.
Yeah.
But I'm also sexually attracted to men, but I have zero desire to actually date one or be in a relationship one.
Yeah.
But things like that were super confusing beforehand. I don't know why my transition allowed me to understand it. Or maybe it's just culture in general evolving, society evolving, again, having more verbiage to describe these different things. But yeah, sexuality and gender they definitely don't go hand in hand at all. They can be completely different. I know many trans women who are lesbians. I know trans men who are gay.
Yeah. As a 53-year-old woman and with friends my age, I am trying very hard to just understand it all and love everybody where they're at because who the fuck am I not to? But also, coming from the 70s where if we saw a gay person, it was a big deal. You know what I mean? It's such a mind blowing thing that it's so totally out there, which is so great. Nobody's having to hide and not be exactly who they are.
Oh, a lot of people are still hiding, trust me.
Oh.
Especially in a lot of the red states. I mean, it is still very scary. If you want to be honest, I was more scared to be perceived as a gay man than I was to be perceived as a trans man.
Oh, that's sad.
Like, it's still scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am fortunate. I passed. I have what is referred to as passing privilege. Unless
you
know, you're probably never going to know. Unless I tell you or somebody tells you, you're never going to look at me and know that I was born a woman.
Yeah.
And so I can walk through, a crowded room and nobody knows. But if you don't have passing privilege, if you're still early in your transition, or, a lot of trans women, it's harder for them to pass. It can be incredibly scary. Still.
What do you think the fear is?
I think a lot of fear against homosexuality is, I don't know, maybe it's projection.
Oh.
There are probably a lot of people that have had, homosexual thoughts, and it's made them feel something kind of weird and they didn't like it. And now they're angry at all other gay people.
Maybe, yeah.
I honestly don't know. With trans people, I think in particular, it's very much just people being afraid of what they don't understand. And with trans women in general, I mean, we have such a misogynistic society in so many ways. I mean, misogyny is almost as rooted as racism in our country. That men, especially those like big, burly, stereotypical tough men, really just cannot wrap their heads around why anybody would choose to go from being a man to a woman. And they just cannot be okay with that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of transphobia is rooted in misogyny.
I have a girlfriend who just does not accept that people are theys.
Non-binary?
I have girlfriends who are just like, nope, doesn't work in their brain. And so they're just like, nope, that's just not a thing.
What your friends need to learn is that it's just not all about them.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
People got to realize that it's just not all about them. Like, this isn't about your life. Like, you don't get to dictate what's real for somebody else.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. It's just she's never had to have those thoughts, so she can't understand them.
Yeah.
I guess.
I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. I realize that some people weren't taught how to be open-minded or that it's okay to be open-minded. But at some point in time, you become an adult and you have to accept responsibility for the person that you become.
Yeah.
So if you grow up and you get to your 50s and 60s and you haven't learned that it's not okay to make other people live inside your box.
Yeah.
It's nobody else's fault. That's entirely someone just refusing to do the work.
Yeah. And so you keep saying the work, and I can see that you have done the work, that you are, you're good with who you are and where you're at. What can you recommend for people to do to open their minds, to get on board? Is there a book to read that can help people, something to watch, like a documentary that will go, oh, I get it now? Is there anything out there?
I think that's all of the above. I mean, there's a million of everything that you just described. I mean,
You just have to go look for it. You have to be open to it and find it.
That's the doing the work. Yeah. You just got to make the time to go read that article and to watch that documentary. I think it's a Brene Brown quote, something along the lines of, you have to accept somebody else's reality as they see it and not how you perceive it to be. Some people, I think they automatically have it in the back of their head that this person is lying, or this person is exaggerating, or this person is putting on a show. And you've got to let go of those preconceived notions of what you think their reality is. And you just have to listen to what their reality is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard. It requires being vulnerable, because the things that you believe and the things that you think you know might be proven wrong or inaccurate. It's a very vulnerable state to be, to put yourself in a position where you might be proved wrong, especially to do it on purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. I see that.
Vulnerability, and maybe that's where it starts. Maybe people need to do the work with vulnerability. Go read a Brene Brown book on, go read Daring Greatly. There, you want a book? I recommend Daring Greatly by Brene Brown.
Awesome.
Work on yourself. Like you said, you can't love and accept other people until you get there with yourself.
That's awesome. Have you ever faced discrimination for anything?
I'm sure I have.
Not really aware of it, not to your face?
Yeah, even that I'm sure I have, but not to the point that it left a lasting effect.
Mm-hmm.
I've been incredibly fortunate within my transition from day one, between support from my family, support from my friends. Spokane, yes, it can be a rather conservative community, but it's also a very, very liberal community, especially within, kind of my age group and the younger age group. So I've been very, very fortunate in this town. I do really appreciate Spokane and this area for the most part. I started passing within a couple years, like almost entirely. So it's been a long time since I've really even had to worry about it, because people just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I haven't even been scared of a bathroom for years, but that's a whole nother fear.
What do you mean?
Bathrooms are a terrifying place for transgender people. Think about all the news that you've even heard trying to keep trans women out of bathrooms, and for what? Because they're claiming that they're going to attack women or this and that. But just in general, especially if you do not pass, like if you're early in your transition, or if you just don't pass, you're always going to risk the stairs.
Yeah.
Especially for transgender men, there's always that fear of physical and sexual violence in the men's room.
Yeah.
There are men that like to use rape as a way of putting out their dominance specifically towards trans men, because we're supposed to be women. Also for trans women, if there is a man outside of the bathroom who sees that transgender woman go into the bathroom, could be something that very quickly could escalate to violence. Trans women have been followed and filmed into restrooms. They have been denied restrooms. It's just a very, very, very uneasy place. I spent a lot of time early in my transition really trying to hide the fact that I was peeing while I was sitting down.
Oh, yeah.
Because my feet face the wrong direction.
Yeah.
So it's not very hard for me to give myself away in a bathroom stall. So for a trans person, an empty public restroom is often an incredibly relieving situation in many ways. Yeah,
that's funny.
Fun. That wasn't even meant to be a pun. It just worked out that way.
That was pretty good. You said one of the things that you do like to be asked is, how has your life view changed? And so how has your life view changed?
It is amazing what happens when you learn to love yourself.
Yeah.
It is just amazing what happens to the world around you when you learn to love yourself. That's why when you made that comment earlier, I really just can't even begin to agree more. I really used to just be miserable. Mm-hmm. I thought it was just depression and anxiety. Don't get me wrong, I still have some anxiety, but I haven't been depressed in years. I really do believe that the energy kind of follows. You get back what you put out into the world. So the more I learned to love myself, the more I was able to give, the more I've been able to give, the more I've been receiving.
Yeah. I
went from a cycle of shame and guilt and depression and anxiety to this amazing, beautiful cycle of give and receive and love, and my friend would say love and light and all that good stuff in between. But it's just, you really get back what you put out into the world, and you can't put anything out that's positive if you don't have that positive inside you.
Right.
Whether it's transitioning, whether it's getting sober, whether it's getting healthy, whether it's learning to expand yourself to achieve something. I think it's so important that we make sure to take the time to do the work on ourselves that make us happy people.
The more I love me, the more I love you.
Oh, heck yeah. Heck yeah. So much easier to see, you see what you look for. So when you're looking for bad stuff all the time, you're going to find bad stuff all the time. when you're looking for good stuff, you're still going to find bad stuff, but you're also going to find good stuff.
Right. I'm embarrassed what I don't know, but this is helping me and others know more.
You shouldn't be embarrassed for what you don't know. People tend to hide when they're embarrassed. Can I share an incredibly positive experience that I had with the homeless gentleman in Portland, Oregon with you?
Yeah.
When a homeless person approaches you abruptly, you always kind of have to stop and gauge, what's the situation. Well, it didn't take me very long to realize that this gentleman just really wanted my help with this phone.
Okay.
The short of the long is he looked at me and he said, I know that I need to ask for help because if I don't ask for help, nobody will help me. So if you don't ask what you don't know, or if you don't open up with what you don't know and what you need help with, then you're going to be stuck, So don't be embarrassed for what you don't know. I respect the hell out of you for being willing to talk about what you don't know and for looking for those answers, because that's what makes us better people.
I have to thank my 5th grade teacher for saying that there was no stupid question. That's only stupid if you don't ask, if you don't know. So exactly. I appreciate that he put that in my head, and I appreciate you being open to answering my questions.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you having me. It's been a great conversation.
I'm sure you'll love listening to it because...
Oh, no, I love listening to myself talk. I can't lie.
That's funny. I don't hate listening to myself either. So we have that in common.
Good. We're perfect. It'll be great.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.